The room was filled with murmurs of anticipation. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered to discuss the most critical issue in recent history. The galaxy's most powerful and respected species were all present, their leaders. Sitting at the great round table, but one name stood above the rest: Princess Kalia of the Zoran Empire. She was revered not only for her royal bloodline, but also for her intelligence, beauty, and unmatched leadership abilities. The council had convened to discuss a growing threat from a mysterious alien race. These invaders, known as the Tsar, had been steadily pushing into the galaxy, capturing systems, and wiping out entire civilizations. The galaxy needed unity, and Princess Kalia, as one of the most influential beings in the universe, was expected to be the key to this alliance. However, as the representatives gathered, awaiting her arrival, a message flashed across the holographic screen. Princess Kalia had just sent her decision. It was a simple request. She refused to travel to the council's central station unless she was aboard a human ship. A shocked silence swept across the room. Representatives exchanged confused glances. Humans were not considered a significant power in the galaxy. Their technology was outdated compared to the advanced fleets of the other species. Why would the princess, a leader of such authority, choose to travel with a human vessel? It was unheard of. Human ships had never been trusted for such high-level diplomatic missions. Yet Princess Kalia's message was clear. No human ship, no meeting. She would not step aboard any other ship. The council was thrown into chaos. Some of the leaders muttered among themselves, questioning Kalia's judgment. "Is she testing us?" one of the commanders asked. "Does she think she is above the rest of us?" The humans were far from the powerful species that controlled vast star systems, but they had something that the galaxy's most advanced ships did not: their unpredictable spirit. Their resilience, often underestimated, led them through wars and countless other challenges. A man named Captain Jack Thompson, a relatively unknown officer in the human fleet, was summoned. He had no idea why he was chosen, had no experience with royalty, no great fleet of ships, and no famous battles under his belt. He was just a captain, barely known outside his home planet. Still, orders were orders. Jack was to be the one to transport Princess Kalia to the council station. No matter the risks involved. He had never even met the princess, but now he was expected to become her protector, her ally. The fate of the galaxy, it seemed, rested on his shoulders and the small human warship he commanded, the ship he captained. The Valkyrie was far from the state-of-the-art vessels that the galaxy's elite used. It was old, a relic of the human. Fleets passed, but it was reliable. It had seen battles, and it had seen peace. And now, it would be the vessel that carried the most powerful princess in the galaxy. As Captain Jack prepared for this unexpected journey, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of nerves and curiosity. Why had Kalia chosen his ship? What was it about the humans that had made her insist on traveling with them? The only thing he knew for certain was that he was not prepared for what lay ahead. Meanwhile, back on the Zoran Empire's royal station, Princess Kalia stood before the giant windows of her palace, gazing out at the stars. She was known for her calm demeanor, but beneath her royal composure, there was a storm of emotions. She had her reasons for insisting on traveling with a human ship, and she wasn't about to reveal them to anyone, not even her closest advisors. She trusted no one more than herself, and this journey would be the first step toward something greater. Her choice was both a challenge and a statement. The galaxy had long underestimated the humans, but Kalia had seen something in them. There was a strength in their spirit, something that set them apart from the other species. She had never fully understood it, but she felt it, and it was this feeling that led her to make the decision. Her decision wasn't about defiance or making a political point. It was about something deeper, something personal. She knew there was more to humans than what the galaxy had ever seen, and perhaps she was ready to uncover the mystery of it. Jack, on the other hand, was less certain of his role. As he prepared to meet Kalia, he tried to convince himself that everything would be fine. After all, he was just a captain of a ship. How hard could it be to transport a princess? But deep inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. He had no idea that the small human vessel he commanded would play a pivotal role in the fate of the galaxy. And he certainly had no idea that the woman he was about to meet would become the most important person in his life. The countdown for departure began, and Captain Jack felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. Princess Kalia's ship was set to land at his dock in just a few hours. The galaxy's most powerful princess was about to board his ship, and the journey that would change everything for both of them was about to begin, Captain. Jack Thompson stood at the control console of the Valkyrie, staring at the large window in front of him. The stars stretched out in every direction, distant and cold, and his ship, a relic of a past era, seemed like the smallest thing in the vastness of space. He couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty settle over him. He had only ever dreamed of commanding missions like this, nothing too important, just routine. Yet now, here he was, about to lead Princess Kalia of the Zoran Empire, the most important figure in the galaxy, on a journey that could change everything. He had no idea why she had chosen his ship, but there was no turning back now. Captain, we're approaching the docking station. The princess's ship is on the way, Lieutenant Sarah Jennings, his trusted second in command, said from across the bridge. Her voice was calm, but Jack could sense her own anxiety. This mission was huge, and no one in the crew had expected it. Understood, Jack replied, his voice steady despite the nerves running through him. Prepare the crew. Let's make sure everything is ready for her arrival. Okay. As he spoke, he felt the weight of responsibility settle more heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just any princess. Princess Kalia was more than a royal heir. She was a symbol of power, wisdom, and strength for an entire species. And yet she had refused to travel with anyone but humans. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her decision than anyone knew. Minutes later, the docking bay doors of the Valkyrie opened, and a sleek alien craft glided into place. The ship, like many of the Zoran's designs, was elegant, with sharp curves and glowing symbols etched into its metal surface. Jack had seen ships like this before, but never this close. The hum of the docking sequence filled the air as Princess Kalia's craft locked into place, ready for boarding. Captain Sarah called out, her voice steady as always. Jack nodded, taking a deep breath as he turned to face the crew. Doors slid open, and there, standing in the doorway of the alien ship, was Princess Kalia herself. She was as magnificent as Jack had imagined. Her long, dark hair cascaded around her shoulders like a silk curtain. Her deep violet eyes scanned the room, and the calm yet confident expression on her face gave nothing away. She wore a flowing dress that shimmered under the light, the fabric seeming to catch the stars themselves. Her presence filled the room. The air felt heavier with her authority. The crew members stood to attention as she entered, but Jack stayed where he was, waiting. Kalia's gaze swept over him, pausing only for a brief moment, and then she approached him. It was no fanfare, no grand display, just a quiet, powerful presence that left no doubt in anyone's mind that she was in charge. Captain Jack Thompson, she said, her voice melodic and firm. I trust you are prepared to take me where I need to go. Jack had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, he felt as though all the rehearsed words had flown out of his mind. He quickly straightened up and offered her a respectful nod. Your Highness. It's an honor, he said, his voice clear but with a hint of nervousness. Yes, everything is ready. We'll depart as soon as you're comfortable. Kalia's lips curled into a faint smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm not here for comfort, Captain. I'm here to do what needs to be done. Words were simple, yet they carried a weight that Jack could feel. There was something behind her cool exterior, something that demanded respect and attention. He had heard rumors about her, of course, stories of her unmatched intelligence, her fierce leadership, and her ability to sway even the most powerful factions in the galaxy. But there was more to her, something deeper that he couldn't quite put his finger on. Then we'll make sure you get there safely, Jack replied, trying to match her serious tone. Let's get underway. The princess nodded, and with that, the crew got to work. The Valkyrie was ready, and now, so was Jack. The crew moved quickly, preparing for the long journey ahead. As the ship's engines roared to life, Jack stole a glance at Kalia. She had taken her seat in the command center, watching him closely. For a moment, there was silence between them. Jack had no idea what to say. He had only just met her, and already she had an aura of mystery around her. There was something about her that intrigued him, something that made him want to understand why she had made this unusual request. "You're wondering why I chose your ship, aren't you, Captain?" Kalia's voice broke through his thoughts. Jack turned to face her. I was curious, Your Highness. It's not every day that a princess refuses to travel with anyone but a human vessel." Kalia's violet eyes narrowed slightly, as if considering his words carefully. "It's not about the ship, Captain. It's about the people. I've seen your kind before. Your unpredictability, your resilience. There's something in the human spirit that the rest of the galaxy underestimates. Something that will be needed in the days to come." Jack felt a wave of surprise wash over him. He had never thought of humans in that way, but hearing it from someone like Princess Kalia made him think twice. There was more to the universe than he had realized, and perhaps there was more to this mission than just protecting a princess. Kalia leaned back in her seat, her gaze still fixed on him. "But don't mistake my words, Captain. This mission is no simple task. You'll have your work cut out for you. And I don't trust easily." Jack nodded, knowing full well that trust would be something they'd have to build together, piece by piece, over the course of this journey. As the ship moved deeper into space, Jack couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission. It was something much bigger. And the journey had only just begun. The stars stretched endlessly before them as the Valkyrie cruised through space. It was a quiet journey for the first few hours. Captain Jack Thompson stood at the helm, his hands resting lightly on the controls. He could feel the hum of the ship beneath his feet, a constant reminder that he was in charge of this mission. But every time he glanced at Princess Kalia, sitting calmly across the room, the weight of his responsibility became heavier. She had barely spoken since their departure. Her presence, as always, was commanding, but she didn't try to assert herself. Instead, she observed everything around her with careful, calculating eyes. Jack wasn't sure what to make of her. She wasn't like any leader he had met before. She didn't try to impress anyone, nor did she seek attention. She was different, quiet, but strong in a way that made everyone else seem insignificant in comparison. Captain Kalea's voice broke through his thoughts. "Do you ever wonder what lies beyond the stars? What we haven't yet discovered?" Blinked, surprised by the question. He had expected their conversation to be about the mission or the Tsar threat. But this was different. It was personal. "I've wondered, of course. Every time I look out into space, I feel small. There's so much out there, things we don't even know exist." She nodded slowly, her gaze still fixed on the endless stretch of space outside the window. "We are all small, Captain. But sometimes being small gives us a unique perspective. It allows us to see things others cannot." Jack wasn't sure what she meant, but he didn't press the issue. Instead, he focused on the journey ahead. He had a job to do, and Kalia had placed her trust in him. Whether he fully understood her reasons or not, the next few days passed quietly. The crew of the Valkyrie went about their duties as usual, and Kalia remained mostly to herself. Often reading old books or studying maps of the galaxy, she wasn't a typical princess. She didn't rely on others to make decisions for her. She was calculating, always thinking several steps ahead. Jack couldn't help but wonder what she was preparing for. During the night shifts, Jack found himself walking through the ship's corridors, lost in thought. The quiet hum of the engines and the soft lights overhead gave the ship a calm, almost peaceful atmosphere. He had been in space many times, but this was different. He was now responsible for someone far more important than any other mission he had ever been on. He paused at the door to the observation deck and gazed out at the stars. The view was breathtaking. A field of glittering light stretched as far as the eye could see, a constant reminder of how vast the universe was. It was both humbling and beautiful. "Isn't it amazing?" Kalia's voice startled him. He hadn't noticed she had come up behind him. Jack turned, surprised to see her standing there, her arms crossed over her chest. She had always carried herself with such poise, but there was something in her eyes now that made her seem more human, more real. "Yeah, it is," he said, his voice soft. "There's so much to see, so much to learn." Kalia didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked out into the vastness of space, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she were searching for something. "Do you believe the universe is endless, Captain?" she asked quietly. Jack hesitated. He had always wondered about the same thing, but he had never given it much thought. "I don't know," he said finally. "It seems like it could be. But there's always something more. New stars, new planets. It's hard to believe it all ends anywhere." Kalia gave a small smile. "The universe is endless, yes. But it is also unpredictable. Just when you think you understand it, something unexpected happens, just like the humans." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Kalia turned to face him fully, her violet eyes meeting his. "The humans are unpredictable. You fight when you should surrender. You stand up when others would fall. Your strength comes from your unpredictability, Captain. And that makes you powerful." Jack wasn't sure what to say to that. He'd never thought of humans as particularly strong or powerful in the grand scheme of things. But hearing it from someone like Kalia made him reconsider. There was something about humans, something that made them stand out. Maybe it wasn't their strength in numbers or their technology. Maybe it was their spirit. Before Jack could respond, an alarm suddenly blared through the ship, interrupting the moment. His heart skipped a beat, and he rushed to the nearest console. "Report," he ordered, his voice sharp. Lieutenant Sarah Jennings' voice came through the com. "Captain, we're picking up an unidentified ship on the radar. It's moving fast and heading directly toward us. It's too fast for a typical scout ship." Kalia was already on her feet, her eyes flashing with a sudden intensity. "The Tsar," she muttered under her breath. "They've found us." Stomach tightened. The Tsar were the reason the Council had called for unity. The deadly alien race had already decimated several systems, and their ships were notorious for being nearly impossible to outrun. He knew they had to act fast, prepare. "For evasive maneuvers," Jack commanded. "All hands to battle stations." The ship was thrown into chaos as the crew scrambled to follow orders. Jack's mind raced. The Tsar were coming, and with them, a danger unlike anything he had ever faced before. He glanced over at Kalia, who stood near the edge of the bridge, her expression calm, as though she had seen this all before. "Are you ready for this, Captain?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. Jack didn't answer immediately. He wasn't sure what kind of enemy they were about to face, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to back down, not with Kalia relying on him. "We'll make it through," he said, determination in his voice. "We have to." The alarm continued to blare across the Valkyrie as the crew scrambled to prepare for the imminent danger. Jack Thompson's hands gripped the console tightly as his eyes flickered over the readings. The unknown ship was closing in on them fast, and he could feel the tension in the air. Every member of the crew moved with a sense of urgency, yet there was no panic. They had trained for moments like this. "We have no time to waste," Jack said, his voice firm and steady. "Prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers. Lieutenant Jennings, can we outrun them?" "We'll try, Captain," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the controls, but they're closing in too quickly. This ship wasn't built for speed. Kalia, standing beside the crew, didn't seem worried. Her calmness in the face of such danger only made Jack more anxious. Was, after all, the most important person on this ship right now. Her safety was his responsibility. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" Jack asked, turning to her.
"Yes."
His voice wasn't angry, just curious. He had seen how composed she was when the alarm sounded, how unfazed she seemed by the threat. It was as though she had expected the danger. Kalia met his gaze with a knowing look, her violet eyes steady and unreadable. "Yes, Captain. I knew they would find us eventually. Then why didn't you tell us?" Jack's voice softened as he took a step closer. He was frustrated, but he understood the weight of what she carried. She wasn't just a princess, She was someone who had seen things others couldn't imagine. Still, the secrecy stung. Kalia sighed, her eyes glancing toward the view of the ship's forward screens. I had to keep it from you. There were too many variables. If you knew everything, you might have hesitated. You might have decided to turn back, and that's not an option anymore. Jack looked at her, trying to make sense of her words. Turn back? Why would we do that? She met his gaze again, her voice quiet but firm. Because the Tsar are after me, and they will stop at nothing to capture me, to kill me. A silence filled the room as Jack absorbed her words. The Tsar were ruthless. He had heard the stories how they destroyed entire worlds without mercy. But why would they want Kalia? She was a princess, a symbol of peace. What could she possibly have that the Tsar would want? You're not just a princess, are you? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. But you're hiding something from us. Kalia paused before she spoke, as if weighing her words carefully. I am the last of my kind, Captain. Zoran Empire has fallen. My people were destroyed by the Tsar years ago. They sought power, and they found it in the form of my species' ability to manipulate energy. But when they learned how to use that power, or themselves, they destroyed us, wiped us off the map. Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. Your people were wiped out? By the Tsar, Kalia said, her voice tinged with sadness but not regret. And now they are after me because I carry the last piece of the Zoran's greatest secret, a power that they have yet to understand. The Tsar believe that if they capture me, they can unlock the secret and use it to destroy the rest of the galaxy. Jack felt his heart race as the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. The reason Kalia had refused to travel with anyone but a human ship. The reason she seemed so calm in the face of danger, it wasn't just because she was a princess. It was because she was the last of her people, and she held within her the key to stopping an unimaginable force. But why me? Why a human ship? Jack asked, still trying to understand. Kalia took a deep breath. Because the power I hold can only be unlocked by someone who is not part of the Zoran bloodline. It must be someone outside of my people, someone who is unpredictable, someone who can resist the control that the Tsars seek to exert over it. Jack's mind raced as he processed the information. It was the key. He didn't fully understand it, but there was no mistaking the urgency in Kalia's voice. He was the one who could unlock the power inside her. He was the one who could stop the Tsar from destroying everything. But how could he, an ordinary human captain, possibly be ready for something like this? I didn't ask for this, Jack said, his voice quiet but filled with emotion. I'm just a captain. I'm not a hero. I don't even know how to protect you from them. Kalia placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. Are more than you think, Captain. You have the strength to do what is necessary. That is why I chose you. It was never about the ship, it was about you. Jack's heart skipped a beat as her words settled in. He had never thought of himself as special. But Kalia seemed to believe in him in a way no one ever had. Before he could respond, the ship shook violently as the Tsar's weapons hit their shields. The alarms blared again, and Sarah's voice echoed through the bridge. Captain, we've got incoming fire. We can't hold them off much longer. Jack gritted his teeth, his mind racing. Brace for impact. Get us out of here. Head for the nearest system anywhere. The crew worked quickly, their movements becoming instinctual as they navigated the chaos. Jack turned to Kalia one last time. We're not giving up, Princess. We're going to stop them. Together. Kalia's expression softened, and for the first time since he had met her, Jack saw a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. Together, she agreed. As the Valkyrie raced toward the unknown, Jack knew the battle ahead would be like nothing he had ever faced. But with Kalia by his side, he felt a newfound determination burn within him. There was no turning back now. The alarm blared again, louder this time, as the ship shuddered under another impact. Jack Thompson's grip tightened on the console, his eyes scanning the monitors. Watching the Tsar ship's firepower tear into their shields. The battle had begun. Shields holding, but not for long. Sarah Jennings shouted from the tactical station, her fingers flying across the control panel. We can't keep this up much longer, Captain. Jack's mind raced. He had only one option to get out of here, and fast. He spun toward the helm, his voice steady. "Lieutenant, can you make a jump to the nearest system? Anywhere we can hide? We're too close to them." Sarah's voice came through, filled with worry. "We won't make it before they get another hit on us." Kalia, who had been standing quietly by the side, now stepped forward, her face calm, as always. There was no panic in her eyes, just the cold determination Jack had come to expect from her. "We need to move fast," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "There's no time to hesitate." Jack turned to her, feeling a mix of urgency and frustration. "I know that, Your Highness. But if we don't get the jump coordinates right, we're done for." Kalia's expression softened, though her eyes never left the screens. "I can help. Let me guide you." Jack blinked, surprised by the suggestion. "What do you mean, you can help?" Kalia's gaze met his, her eyes filled with quiet confidence. "The Zoran have a unique connection to space. Well, I can sense the energy flows, Captain. I can help you find the path to safety." Jack hesitated. He had never heard of anything like this before, but they had no other choice. He trusted her, though he wasn't entirely sure why. "All right, let's do it, but we have to act fast." Without another word, Kalia moved to the main console, her hands gently resting on the controls. Jack stood beside her, watching as she closed her eyes for a brief moment. The ship seemed to calm slightly, as if responding to her presence. He could feel the tension in the air, but something about her energy made him believe in the impossible. Now Kalia said softly, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Trust me." Jack nodded, his heart racing. Engage jump sequence. The ship shuddered again as the Tsar ship fired another blast, and the shields flickered under the assault. Time was running out. The crew scrambled to execute the jump, the ship's engines straining under the pressure. Sarah's voice echoed through the comms as she input the final commands. Coordinates locked in. Jump in 5, 4, 3. Kalia's eyes flashed open just as the countdown reached 0. The stars outside the viewports began to blur, the familiar universe distorting into streaks of light. Jack gritted his teeth, holding on tightly to the console as the ship jumped into hyperspace. There was a moment of weightlessness before the ship lurched to a stop. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then, the hum of the engines returned, and the lights flickered back to full power. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, but Jack's mind was still racing. They had made the jump, but where were they now? "Status?" he called out, turning to Sarah. We're safe for now," Sarah said, her voice uncertain. "We've entered an uncharted system. There's no sign of the Tsar ship." Jack let out a slow breath, his hands relaxing on the controls. "Good, but we can't stay here long. We need to figure out where we are and plan our next move." Kalia stepped away from the console, her expression calm, but there was something else in her eyes now, something deeper. "You're right, Captain, but we are not out of danger yet. Tsar will follow us. They will not stop until they have what they want." Jack turned to face her, his voice low but firm. "And we won't stop either. We'll keep fighting." Kalia nodded slightly, her gaze turning toward the view of the unknown system outside. "The fight is not just for your survival, Captain. It's for the survival of every species in this galaxy. You are not simply protecting me. You are protecting everything that still stands." Jack's heart pounded as her words sank in. He had never imagined that his role in this mission would be so important. He was just a captain, nothing more. Yet here he was, in the middle of a galactic struggle, with a princess who believed in him more than he believed in himself. "Won't let them win," Jack said, his voice resolute. He looked at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes. They had come together under the most unlikely circumstances, and now they had a purpose. Kalia's eyes softened, just a little, as she watched the crew. "You don't realize how much the galaxy needs you, Captain. It needs humanity's unpredictability. Your people will be the ones to stop the Tsar, if you can find the strength within yourselves." The silence in the room grew heavy.
For the back.
First time since they had met, Jack felt a weight in his chest. The Tsar were a threat unlike anything he had faced before. But he wasn't alone. He had Kalia, he had his crew, and he had the determination to keep fighting. "Let's find out where we are," Jack said, his voice steady. We need to figure out our next move. We can't afford to waste any time. Kalia nodded, but her expression was distant. We are in a forgotten system. It's one that no one dares to travel to, Captain. But it holds the answers we need. The Zoran hid their greatest weapon here, hidden from the Tsar. Jack turned to her. His interest piqued. A weapon? I mean, there's something here that can stop them. Kalia's eyes locked onto his, a glint of determination in them. Yes, Captain. The Tsar are not the only ones with power. And we will find that power together. With that, the crew set their course toward the unknown. They had survived the attack, but the real challenge was just beginning. As the Valkyrie ventured deeper into the uncharted system, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something far more dangerous than they had imagined. But with Kalia by his side, he knew they had a chance to change the course of history. The stars stretched out before them as the Valkyrie glided deeper into the unknown system. Jack Thompson stood at the helm, his hands steady on the controls. Though his mind was far from calm, the uncharted system they had entered was unlike any place he had ever seen. It was quiet, almost too quiet, with no signs of life. No nearby planets that registered on any of their scans. Kalia, who had been sitting in the command center silently for hours, finally spoke. This is it. The planet we seek is just ahead. Jack looked up, his brow furrowing. I don't see anything on the scans. Are you sure this is the right place? Fakalia's violet eyes were focused, her expression calm but serious. Trust me, Captain. The planet is hidden in plain sight. It's not visible to standard scans. Only those who are meant to find it can. Jack's mind raced. He had no reason not to trust her, but there was something unsettling about this whole laughter. A few tense minutes. The ship landed with a soft thud on the rocky surface. The landing gear groaned under the weight, but they had made it. The door to the ship opened, and a gust of cold, dry wind hit them. Jack stepped out first, his boots crunching against the rocky terrain. He scanned the horizon, his eyes searching for any sign of life. But there was nothing, only the stark emptiness of the planet. Kalia followed him, stepping onto the surface with a quiet grace. Her face was calm, but Jack could sense the weight of this place on her. This was the home of her people, the last remnants of the Zoran Empire. And now it was empty. Only ruins remained. This way, Kalia said, pointing to a distant mountain range. The ruins are at the base of those cliffs. Jack nodded and led the way, motioning for the rest of the crew to follow. As they walked, the quietness of the planet grew more oppressive. Every step they took seemed to echo in the silence. The planet felt alive, but not in the way that Jack was used to. There was an energy here, an ancient power that hummed beneath the surface, but it was difficult to place. The crew moved forward cautiously, staying close together. The further they went, the more the landscape began to change. The rocky ground was replaced by smooth, worn stone, and they could see the faint outlines of ancient structures emerging in the distance. City, full of life and knowledge. There, Kalia said, pointing ahead. The entrance to the temple is just beyond those ruins. That is where the Zoran kept their most powerful weapons. As they reached the entrance, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The stone doorway was massive, covered in intricate carvings that told the story of Kalia's people, of their rise, their fall, and their ultimate sacrifice. It was clear that this place had been built to withstand the ages, but it had long since fallen into disrepair. Inside, the air was cool and stale, the light from their torches casting long shadows on the walls. As they moved deeper into the ruins, they came across ancient chambers filled with relics and artifacts from the past. But none of these objects held the answers they were searching for. It wasn't until they reached the center of the temple that they found what they were looking for. In the center of the chamber, a massive stone pedestal stood, covered in dust and cobwebs. On it lay a small glowing crystal, its light faint but unmistakable. Kalia stepped forward, her eyes wide with recognition. "The Zoran's greatest weapon," she whispered. "It's here." Jack watched as she reached out and carefully lifted the crystal from its resting place. As soon as her fingers touched it, the chamber seemed to come alive. The walls hummed with energy, and the ground beneath them trembled. "This is it," Kalia said, her voice filled with both awe and fear. "This is the power we need to defeat the Tsar." Jack took a step closer, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea how this small crystal could possibly hold the key to stopping the Tsar, but if Kalia believed it, then he was willing to trust her. "My ancestors could harness its energy, but it's not something to be used lightly. It can destroy entire fleets, tear apart planets if necessary. But to control it, you must be prepared to make a sacrifice." The weight of her words sank in. Jack had heard stories of weapons capable of unimaginable destruction, but this was different. This wasn't just about fighting, it was about risking. "Everything, we can't use this, unless we're sure," Jack said, his voice firm but filled with doubt. "We don't know what will happen. We don't know how it will react." Kalia nodded slowly, her eyes filled with a quiet sadness. "I've spent my whole life hiding from the Tsar, running from the truth. But now, there is no running anymore. The galaxy is in danger, and this is the only chance we have." She turned the crystal in her hands once more. "Tsar. Think. They are the only ones who can control this power, but they are wrong. I am the last of my people, and I have the knowledge to use this. But I need your help, Captain. This power is too great for one person to wield alone." Jack met her gaze, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what she was asking. He didn't just have to trust her with the crystal. He had to trust her with the fate of the galaxy. But despite his doubts, something deep inside told him she was right. They had come this far together. They had to finish this. "All right," Jack said, his voice steady. "What do we need to do?" Kalia gave him a small, almost sad smile. "We use the crystal to send a signal to the Tsar. We show them that we're not afraid to fight back. We make them understand that they can't destroy us without consequences." Jack's mind raced. He could already see the battle ahead, the Tsar fleet bearing down on them with overwhelming force. But with Kalia's power and the crystal, maybe they had a chance. Maybe they could turn the tide. He couldn't afford to think about the dangers. Not now. "I'll help you," Jack said, his voice unwavering. "We'll fight together. We'll show them that we won't back down." The crew gathered around them, the weight of the decision settling over everyone. They had come this far, and now they were facing the most dangerous battle of their lives. There was no turning back. Kalia stepped forward, her fingers brushing against the surface of the crystal once more. "Let's make it count." The journey back to the Valkyrie was quick, but the tension in the air was palpable. Jack and Kalia stood side by side in the command center. The rest of the crew focused on preparing the ship for the final confrontation. The Tsar were out there, and time was running out. They had no idea when the enemy fleet would arrive, but they couldn't wait any longer. The crystal had to be activated now as the crew worked. Jack stole a glance at Kalia. Her face was set in determination, but there was something else there too, a quiet resolve. She wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting for the memory of her people, for everything they had lost. "For the galaxy's future," Captain Kalia said, breaking the silence, "the Tsar won't stop until they have me. They won't stop until they have the power I carry. But this is our chance to make sure they never get it." Jack nodded. He understood. This was their final stand, and they were ready to make it count. "All right," Jack said, taking his seat. "Let's do this." The ship's systems hummed to life as they powered up for the battle ahead. The crew was ready. Jack could feel the adrenaline rising in his veins. The stakes were high, but they had come too far to turn back now. They had one shot at this, and they couldn't afford to waste it. Minutes later, the Tsar fleet appeared on their sensors. It was massive, hundreds of ships, all converging on their position. Jack's heart raced as he watched the enemy ships grow larger on the screen. "Brace for impact," Jack shouted as the first wave of Tsar fire came crashing toward them. The ship rocked under the force of the blasts. But the Valkyrie held strong. Jack quickly ordered evasive maneuvers, guiding the ship through the incoming fire. But even with all their skill, they couldn't outrun the Tsar fleet forever. They had to fight. "Activate the crystal," Jack called out. "Now, Kalia." Kalia stepped forward, her hands trembling as she placed the crystal in the center of the control console. The moment it touched the surface, a blinding light filled the room. The ship's systems hummed with new energy, and the whole vessel seemed to come alive. The Tsar fleet hesitated as the energy field expanded, but it was too late. The signal had been sent. The crystal's power surged out, creating a massive shockwave that rippled through the enemy fleet. The Tsar ships faltered, their shields failing under the intense pressure of the energy field. The battle was far from over, but the tide had shifted. With the power of the crystal, they had a fighting chance. Jack felt a surge of hope as the battle raged on. They could win this. They had the power to fight back. They weren't going down without a fight. And in that moment, as the crystal's power pulsed through the ship, Jack knew that they would succeed. The Tsar had underestimated humanity, and now they would see what humans were truly capable of.